My friends, before we talk about one master, let's pay tribute to another master. Me. I just got word yesterday that I will be inducted into the 2020 North Dakota State Wrestling Hall of Fame, and next month in February they want to present me with this at the state high school wrestling tournament in Fargo. Now, this is kind of short notice for me because I have a kid, he doesn't have a passport yet, I'm not in the United States, so if you want to help us out, say a prayer that we can get my son's passport expedited and we can make the trip and we can all enjoy this honor as a family. So that's very cool and I'm happy to share that with you. Now, the point of the video. The other night, as I was lying in bed, falling asleep, kind of channel surfing, I came across a reality show. And there's many insipid reality shows out there, but I stopped on this one because there really wasn't anything else on TV. And this one, if I'm going to watch one of these silly reality shows, this one I'm maybe a little bit more attracted to because it's called Growing Up Model. It's about the children of supermodels. Now, I was no supermodel myself. I did have a pretty good modeling career, but I wasn't at that supermodel level. And you might be asking, what exactly is a supermodel? Basically, that's a higher classification of model. Essentially, that's someone that's rich and famous from just modeling. They don't have to have any other talent or skills. Think Tyra Banks, Heidi Klum. Now, I know those people are doing more mainstream shows now, but even when they were just modeling, they were famous people and getting very rich from modeling. And as you can guess, most supermodels happen to be female. There have been some male supermodels, but most of them are female. And so I was kind of, just because of my modeling career, I kind of had that interest in it. So I started watching this. Now, the first thing that struck me about this show, these kids are not exactly what you might think. Now, logically, you'd think, boy, with those kinds of genetics, they must be some real head turners. Now, these kids, they look fine, but they're young people. They're at the peak of their physical attractiveness. Their looks are the best they're ever going to get because they're in their late teens, early 20s, most of them. And if you were on any college campus, by no means would these be the most attractive people. Like I said, most of them, they're fine looking. There's nothing wrong with them. They're decent looking, but they're not these knockouts. So it kind of shows you that genetics, they can kind of pass the next generation by to some extent anyways. But they got on this scene and there was this girl. She was a tall, kind of heavy-set, dark-haired gal, and she was talking about her dad. And she was saying, I don't really know my dad very well. I don't really have a relationship with my father because he's always off doing his own thing. And that struck me as very strange because when I hear someone say he's off doing his own thing, usually I think of someone that's maybe moved away and went to college. They're in a different city from their parents and maybe they're partying, chasing girls, getting into the usual hijinks, trying to find their way in the world, essentially. So I think of someone very young when someone says he's off doing his own thing. So that struck me as very odd because obviously her father would have to be a much older guy because this girl's somewhere in her 20s, probably early 20s. And she said he remarried and he has a new family and that's more his priority. I only really see him occasionally on the holidays. And she said, the last time that I was at this guy's house, I sat in his chair and he came in and he said, "You do not sit in that chair. That is the master's chair. Only the master is allowed to sit in that chair." And she said he was not joking when he said this. He was deadly serious. And I thought, man, this guy sounds like a complete psychopath. I can't imagine if I ever have a chair in my life that I love. I can never imagine coming in, seeing my son sitting in the chair and getting angry about it. Maybe I'll give him some good-natured ribbing and say, oh, you're taking over the old man's chair or whatever. Something like that. But to be angry about something like that, a guy that is like that to his daughter must be a real psychopath. And then they showed a photo of her father. And it turns out her father is Steven Seagal. Her mom's Kelly LeBrock, a model from the 80s. Her father's Steven Seagal. And then I thought, oh, okay, this all makes sense based upon everything I've heard about Steven Seagal from people that have worked with him, people that have co-starred in movies with him. Apparently, he's a little bit crazy and he takes himself very seriously. So it all lines up. But I was thinking about something too. I was thinking, I hope that Steven Seagal can see this show to see how his daughter feels, or she can call her dad, and she was kind of talking about this on the show. Maybe she can call her dad and talk some of this over, because anytime you're upset in life, before flying off the handle, the best thing to do is always let the other person know that you have a problem with, because they might not even realize that you feel this way and that you have these issues. So first of all, she should call her dad and talk to him about this, because maybe in his mind he's thinking, well, she's a young lady, she doesn't want to be around dad, she wants to do her own thing. So bring that up, and that's the same thing in all of our lives. As a general rule, I try never to get angry at anyone before trying to talk to them about it first. And you would be amazed at how many problems that clears up, how many major problems it can avoid. But the mom said to this girl too, she said, he's still your father. And I think we also have to keep that in mind for us. Sometimes we're angry at our parents or whatever, or family members, but you only have one mom, you only have one dad, and you have to be somewhat forgiving of them and their flaws too, because certainly we all have our own flaws, and none of us have done everything completely perfect in life. But I thought that that was an interesting thing that I wanted to share with you. It's kind of funny too, because like I said, there's a lot of bad stories out there from people that have worked with Steven Seagal. He's one, and I'm not trying to just trash talk the guy, I don't know the guy from Adam, but he's one of those guys, no one seems to ever say anything good about him. You only hear bad things about him. Now, I'll cut him, me personally, I'll cut him the benefit of the doubt, but I remember a number of years ago, I saw him on TV. This is maybe within the last 10 years, so not that long ago. Like long past when he's been past his peak, his prime of his fame and his star power. He was on TV on some cable channel giving an interview. And he started talking about, the interviewer started talking about Bruce Lee, and he was saying, oh yeah, I trained with Bruce Lee, and he would show me some of his moves, and I would show him mine, and I'd like to think that it was mutually beneficial, and we have something in common because his son is about the same age as my son. And I'm thinking, how old is Steven Seagal, especially that he would have a son around the same age as Bruce Lee's son. I was thinking, how old is this guy? And then doing some research onto it, it was all a bunch of nonsense, because his son is younger. His first son was actually born after Bruce Lee was already dead. And this would have happened like late 60s, maybe around 1970, and Steven Seagal would have been very young, probably not even been in the same area or location as Bruce Lee, let alone as a kid giving Bruce Lee tips and advice and trying to trade things with them. So I think that was that was nothing but a bunch of hogwash. But that's a little bit of other interesting stuff. So I wanted to share this with you. Hopefully you learned something, and if you want to help me and my family out, go ahead, say a prayer that we can all go to America. Everything with my son's paperwork gets cleared up, so we can all enjoy that special moment as a family. Until next time, my friends.